All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Intro to Magnetism. What I want you to do for this assignment is just write down all the bullet points and sketch all of the sketches, with the exception of this first sketch here. This is just what happens if you drop iron filings onto a magnet. It shows something called magnetic field lines, which is the purpose of this lesson. In this lesson, all I want you to do is think about the direction of the magnetic field. So the first bullet point to write down is that all atoms have an intrinsic magnetic field, and a macroscopic material becomes magnetic when these fields align. Now what this means is all atoms have intrinsic means just because. So all atoms just have a magnetic field. That's just the way they are. And it's usually pointing in all random directions, so they don't form a field together. And once they align, they begin forming a magnet. So that's how magnets work. Magnets form when the magnetic fields of every atom point in the same direction. They have something called a magnetic dipole moment, and those are all pointing in the same direction for magnets like we have on the right-hand side here. So like I said, I want you to sketch these. For this drawing here, if you're only using like one color pencil or pen, just draw arrows in random directions. I couldn't find a good enough picture that shows that. But that can represent the direction of the magnetic dipole. These are all pointing in random directions. So this is a non-magnet. It is non-magnetized. These, on the other hand, they are all pointing in the same direction. So you could have a bunch of arrows pointing to the right. This is a magnet because they're all pointing in the same direction. Okay, next bullet. Each magnet has a north magnetic pole and a south magnetic pole. And the definition for these is a little strange in my opinion. The end that points towards the north pole of the Earth is the north magnetic pole, and the end that points towards the south magnetic pole of the Earth is the south magnetic pole. So to figure out which end is north or south, you first need to know what direction the Earth's magnetic field is pointing. So you need a reference magnet in order to figure out which end of your magnet is north or south. The planet Earth is quite strange because it is almost like an inverted magnet. Of course, we call this the North Pole, but that is the south end of Earth's magnet. Earth is like a magnet where the south end of that magnet is on the north side, and the north end of that magnet is on the south side. It sort of makes your head hurt thinking too much about it. So the point is, we use Earth's magnetic field to figure out what direction or which end of our magnet is north. That's how compasses work. They're just lining up with the magnetic field lines of Earth. So go ahead and sketch both of those as well. For Earth, make sure you include that little magnet in there, S and N, and then the arrows going around on it. You might also want to emphasize that this is geographic north, because on your paper it might look a little weird to have an S near the top and an N near the bottom. So definitely include that as well. North geographic pole is at the top. Something else that's pretty interesting down here is that our rotational axis of Earth is not the same as our magnetic axis of Earth. So when you're looking at a magnet, you're not actually looking for you're not looking at geographic north, you're looking at the magnetic north, which is slightly off from it. Is that bullet number 3? Bullet number 3, like poles repel each other and unlike poles attract each other. Probably review for everybody, but it's worth noting This is also just a pretty cool image, so sketch it out, please. It shows that when you place magnets parallel and in the same direction, they're going to push off of one another. It's cool because the north ends are pushing off of one another, and the south ends are pushing off of one another because they are like. And then over here, the north and the south, they are unlike, so they are attracting one another. I just thought it was a cool visual. So if you place these two magnets next to each other, they're going to slide apart. These two magnets are going to pull in. Don't draw this because you already drew it. What is this, bullet number 4, I think? Bullet number 4. The interesting thing about magnets is that you can't separate them in the same way that positive and negative charges can be separated. Let me rephrase that. North and south poles. North and south poles cannot be separated in the same way that positive and negative charges can be separated. Cutting a magnet in half just creates two magnets. So in the previous picture, it looks like you have a north and a south pole. It looks like that north and south pole are totally separate from one another. But in reality, you can't cut them apart to create a north magnet and a south magnet. They're always going to have poles. We can see that in this image. Up to you if you want to draw this one, because like I said, you already drew this. But if you can visualize it here, if I were to cut this in half, if I were to ignore this end, I still have 24 magnetic dipoles pointing in the same direction, and therefore I still have a magnet. So the point is, cutting a magnet in half just creates two new isolated and totally separate magnets. Now this is kind of repetitive, but I mean the image is so cool it's worth drawing and worth discussing again. Much like we use, let's see, this is a lot like the planet Earth picture. It says the direction of the magnetic field at any point in space is the direction indicated by the North Pole of a small compass needle placed at that point. So this is a little weird, but I think it's important to write down. I'm going to read that again. The direction of the magnetic field at any point in space is the direction indicated by the North Pole of a small compass placed at that point. So the point here is we use Earth to figure out which end of our compass is north. We use Earth to figure out which end of our little compass is north, and then we use that compass to figure out the direction of other magnetic fields. So our Earth's magnetic field points towards geographic north, which is actually the south pole of Earth's magnet, which is odd. And then we can place that same compass into random magnetic field to figure out the direction. Now this is this is caveman physics here. They're placing a compass at every single point to figure out what direction the magnetic field is, but eventually we'll work with mathematics to figure out the direction. We can predict it with just the maths. So if I were to place a compass at every single point of this picture, that's too many compasses. I need a better way to represent the magnetic field. And I will do so with magnetic field lines. Remember, this is the whole point of the lesson. Not necessarily, being able to draw magnetic field lines is pretty much the point of this lesson here. Here's what it says. Magnetic field lines show the direction of the field produced by a magnet. So down here we have a north and south pole of an individual magnet here. And magnetic field lines are so strange. They point out of the North Pole and into the South Pole. So magnets create an inward field, inward magnetic field, and an outward magnetic field. And that is insane. Our planet Earth only creates an inward field. Earth creates a gravitational field that pulls everything in. Magnetic fields are a little different. They can be inward and outward. The second thing to write down here is that the closer the magnetic field lines are, the stronger the field is at that location. So that's evident in the picture here. I think it's quite intuitive that the magnetic field is strongest near the magnet. So we see very close lines. As you move farther away, these lines get more and more spaced apart because the magnetic field is weaker there. Same deal at the south end. The magnetic field lines are quite close, so that means it's a strong field. But farther out from the magnet, the lines are farther apart, and therefore it's a weaker magnetic field. Something interesting is going on here. Since this is sort of a blend, this is neither north nor south in the center. It's sort of no man's land. There isn't really a strong magnetic field at that point. It seems as though it's getting stronger further out, but that is beyond my understanding of magnets. And that's our show. Once again, I think the main points here are magnets form when all the magnetic dipoles of an atom face in the same direction. Can't cut a magnet in half because of that idea. When I cut a magnet in half, they're all still pointing in the same direction. So I just have two new magnets. And I think the magnetic field lines is huge. This is what we'll be using a lot. We'll be doing some math associated with the magnetic field lines. And overall, a cool chapter. I look forward to talking more with you about it. Thanks for watching, and post your stuff on Google Classroom.